is for your benefit. Can you say that? Forgiveness is for my benefit. Tell your neighbor that. Many times we may forgive others, but some of us live in regret of the mistakes that we have made. And we find it hard to forgive ourselves. Forgiving ourselves. If you carry guilt, if you feel, I wish I had never done this before, I regret for having done this, and I suppose all of us in life will have some regret or the other. Something that we wished in that moment of foolishness we did. Now we wish we had never done it. I'm sure there are people here. Isn't it true? Isn't it true? We need to forgive ourselves. If you say, I wish I've never done it, or I regret for doing it, you need to forgive yourself. Saying, I forgive myself. When God has forgiven you, who are we to hold it against ourselves? It's only pride that says, I will not forgive myself. Because God has forgiven us. So we need to forgive ourselves. And like Victor did this morning, we hold God responsible for things that have gone wrong in our life. It's not God. But we have blamed God. Why? Because we have a wrong understanding of God. Wrong understanding. We blame God for the circumstances that have gone wrong in our life. And we hold it against God. We need to release Him from that. Lord, forgive me for my wrong understanding of you. I blamed you for the things that have gone wrong. As a result, my relationship between you has been cut off. And we need to let go of God. Lord, I release you from that misunderstanding. I release you from that wrong perception of you. You need to let go. How do we forgive? Just as Christ forgave us. How did Jesus forgive us? You remember that illustration? Where is that? How did Jesus forgive us? He blots out our transgression. He completely removes it. He blots out our transgression and He makes a choice not to remember. How we forgive, we need to blot out people's transgression. Blot it out. Wipe it out. Now, having wiped out, you will know what they have done. But when the thought comes back to you what they have done, you press delete immediately. Don't wait for it to go around for half an hour. By that time, anger will rise, the emotions will rise, the pain will rise. Immediately, the moment you remember it, if you've forgiven them, delete. Delete. You keep doing delete regularly, before you know it, it's gone. It's gone. Remove their sin, blot it out, and make a choice not to remember. Why do we still struggle? Because the pain is not being handed over to God. We say we forgive, but I can't forget. I'm struggling with it. It keeps coming back. Why? The pain has not been dealt. In the next session, we're going to be looking more deeply at that. Handing over the pain to the Lord and Jesus healing us. When the pain is healed, it's easy to forgive and to let go. Why is it so important? The foundational years of our life, 0 to 12, are very important years of our life. 0 to 12. Because whatever happens to you in those foundational years is what's going to shape you for who you are going to be. So 0 to 12, what happened? Today's problems are not today's problems. It's what happened in your foundational years. How you handle circumstances. How did you handle rejection and pain? How did you handle all of that? That's what's shaping today. Let me narrate to you an incident which is true, which helps me to sum up what I want to talk about. Bitter root judgments. Bitter root judgment. Judgments which come out of bitterness, which are which have taken root in our life. When did it begin? Right in those foundational years. In the foundational years. And what happens when a tree takes root? Automatically the fruit begins to come. We are dealing with the fruit, but there's no point in dealing with the fruit unless you deal with the root. Unless you deal. And so you think, I'm such an angry person, I'm so bitter, I'm this, that. You try to deal with your anger, but you need to look at the root. Where did the root begin? What's the root? So bitter root judgment, I can sum it up in the story so that you understand. It's not a story, it's a truth. I'm just changing names of characters. Jim grew up in a home where his mom was very big. And because she was big, she could hardly move around. And she would make Jim the errand boy. Run here, get this, get that, do this, do that. Jim had no problem. He didn't mind going out of the house, going shopping, buying things and coming. He didn't mind it. But the problem was, every time he came back buying things for his mom, she always found fault with him. Why did you buy like this? Couldn't you have bought better one? Couldn't you have done? So she would keep nagging him about it. Jim hated his mom for the fact that she would nag him. And so the more weight she put on, the more running around Jim had to do. And Jim was angry with his mom because she was so fat. And because she was fat, he felt that she was nagging him. Jim decided, when I grow up and I get married, I'm going to marry a slim girl. Not someone like my mom, but a slim girl who will not nag me. Jane grows up in a home where her father abdicated responsibilities. He would never do things around the house. And so she was so angry because he never took responsibility, he never provided, he never did things for the house. So Jane was angry and bitter against her father. And so she decided, when I grow up, I'm going to marry a man who is very handy, who will do things around the house. Jim and Jane met. She was slim and slender, and here was Jim, who was a handyman. They both felt perfect partner. They get married, all is well in their marriage, till 5 years later, Jane begins to get pregnant and she begins to put on weight. Now Jim begins to have a problem. Why? Because she's putting on weight. There's a deep fear in him that she will become like his mother. And so he is now getting irritated. She's putting on weight, he's getting irritated. Because he's getting irritated, his wife begins to nag him. Why are you like this? Why are you doing that? What happens to Jim? Reminds him of his mother. And because she reminds him of his mother, he stops doing things around the house. What happens to Jane? She's now reminded of her father. Bitter root judgment is what you sow in your life in your early years comes back to you in the latter years of your life. Jim sowed bitterness towards the mother, saying she's a nag. And latter years, his wife became a nag. Jane sowed bitterness about her father. Latter years, her husband became like that. And so many times when I'm sitting for ministry, there are women. I remember especially this one lady who came to me. She said, my father used to drink and gamble and as a womanizer. I hated my father because I was like a weekend child. During the week, I never got to go home. They would leave me with my grandparents. Only weekends I will be with my parents. And even then my father will be gambling and drinking. I hated him for his gambling and drinking, though I loved my father. But I hated the gambling and the drinking. And deep inside, she never ever told her father, I hate you. Never ever said things like that to him. But on the inside, she resented the fact that he would drink and gamble and womanize. She married a man who never touched liquor, never gambled. But years after their marriage, This man became a gambler, an alcoholic, and a womanizer. What happened? What she sowed in the early years came back to her. The one you resent is the one you will resemble. If you resent your mother so much, you will find you will be just like her. Why? It's the anger, the bitterness, the hatred towards your mother that you carry that comes back to you. You behave like her. And if anyone tells you that you behave like your mother, you'll get all the more angry. The one you resent is the one you resemble. Bitter root judgment. What have we sowed in the early years of our life? Today you're seeing it in your marriage. What is it that you have sown that's coming down to you? What is the bitter root judgment? People who have been hurt often make judgments against those who have hurt them. Judgments are authoritative, sinful, condemning pronouncements against others. In the court of law, the judge passes a verdict, says he is a murderer. He is guilty. So you label the person saying murderer. For the rest of his life, he goes about with a label on his head, murderer. Many times we have labeled people saying liar. We pass a statement, we pass a verdict on them, guilty. That's judgment. We pronounce judgment over our parents. That judgment, God's word says, do not judge or you will also be judged. You sow a judgment, you will reap a judgment. What you sow will come back. It may not come back immediately, but in the latter years. And many of us are reaping what we sowed in the early years of our life. God's unchanging law is that if I sow a judgment, I will reap a judgment. Because of a judgment, there's an expectation. You expect that particular behavior to happen. Because you're expecting it, it happens. It happens. There was a lady, I remember in our school of healing, she says, I hate all car mechanics. Why? Because these mechanics always take me for a ride and they're taking money out of me. So she never trusts mechanics. And wherever she went, she's the only one where they will take her for a ride. Somehow they will take money out of her. Why? Because there's already within her an expectation. If I go to this mechanic, he's going to take me for a ride. And it happens. Job says, that which I feared happened to me. We say, I never trust doctors, they're quack. In your life only you will find they're like that. I know of people like that. They say, I never trust doctors, they're quack. Right enough, they get the wrong medicine, they get the wrong treatment. And so this lady, when she realized it, she forgave all mechanics. She said, Lord, forgive me for this expectation that I've had. She forgave, she released it. And one day, during that school itself, it happened in the 3 months, she went, her car broke down. She had to take it to the mechanic. She was standing in the queue. And suddenly one guy comes to her and says, what's happened? She says, no, my car broke down. He said, can I see it? Thinking he was one of the fellows who was standing in the queue, she said, okay. He went, he said, oh, this is a small problem. He fixed it up for her. Then she said, thank you, I was just waiting for the mechanic to come. He says, yeah, I'm part of one of the mechanics here. She said, so how much do I pay? He says, don't worry, carry on. For the first time in life, it didn't happen to her. Why? Because she had sown a good seed. She had forgiven the mechanics. We can break that cycle that's happening in our life by forgiveness. And by now sowing seeds of love, sowing seeds of forgiveness, sowing seeds instead of place of bitterness, sowing good seeds. Do not judge, for we too will be judged. For in the same manner we judge others, the same measure it will be measured back to you. I'd like to end this session with one of the testimonies from our school. In the many years ago, I share it because this testimony has always touched lives. sitting in our school, one of the early schools, right in the middle, the first row, on the corner aisle of the thing was an older lady, 75 years of age. She would sit there. She never wanted to come to school. Her children forced her to come to school. She had 3 sons. They were all married with children of their own. But they wanted their mother to come and attend the school. So they sent her with a friend. She never wanted to come. She says, Bangalore, I hate to go to Bangalore. So they fooled her and took her to Mysore, saying we're going to Mysore. From Mysore, they put her on a bus to Bangalore. The friends, all planned by the sons. Because they know if they tell their mother, Bangalore, she'll never come. They brought her to Bangalore. She said, Bangalore. Then she started having chest pain and all of that. And so they were worried. I said, don't worry. This is just the enemy doesn't want her. Now, I didn't know anything about her story. I had no clue about what had happened. So she came in and she was sitting there. When I spoke about forgiveness, at the end of the session, she came to me and she said, you know, I never sit for a session on forgiveness. In my church, whenever they talk about forgiveness, I get up and I walk out. She says, but this time I couldn't get up. I was glued to my seat and my mouth was shut. I had to listen to every word you spoke. And so I said, she says, I hate Bangalore. I hate Subramaniams. Now her roommate was one Mrs. Subramaniam. And she made it clear right through the conference, I hate Subramaniam, so she didn't want to. She wanted me to change the room also, because the lady's name was Subramaniam. During ministry, I had Air Commodore Babu, who is coming for ministry in the next few days. He'll be here. He's an Air Force, ex-Air Force man, retired Air Force man. He was with me and we were ministering to her. And she told us, I hate Air Force men. You know, God is amazing how He does things. Puts Subramaniam there, brings her to Bangalore, puts an Air Force man before her. So as Babu and I began to hear the story, we realized why. Now she was the 4th child born to her parents. 4th girl baby. Her father's an Air Force man. He told his wife, if this baby is a girl baby, don't bring her home, leave her in the hospital. He was away when the child was born. Mother did not know how to tell the father that this is a girl baby. She said, baby boy born. Father was happy. In his station, he distributed sweets to everyone. Beta ho gaya. Son is born. He's happy. He comes home after 3 months. He's so happy playing with this child. No one opens their mouth to tell him this is a girl baby. They're all in fear and trembling. He's playing around the child. One day the child messes up, so he goes to change the child's napkins and finds out that it's a girl baby. He's so angry. In the same, with the bed sheet, he rolls the baby up, puts it on his shoulder, walks for miles and then throws the baby into a dustbin and comes away. A servant passing by hears the cry of the baby, picks it up, opens this bundle and finds this child and says, this is the grandchild of the person I'm working for from the next village. Takes it back. Now they are all from a community where they don't touch anything from the dustbin, untouchable. Takes it to the grandparents. Grandparents says, don't bring this child in because the child has come from the dustbin. So they call the mother and say, your baby was found in a dustbin. Mother comes, takes the child, but she cannot go back to her parents' house because it is untouchable. So she goes looking around for a place. Her story goes on. There's so many things that happen in the time till finally the mother does not know what to do. Hands the baby over to an orphanage and says, I don't know whose child this is. I found this baby in the dustbin. Because she didn't want to give the name of the father or the mother. And so the child is brought up in an orphanage. Years later, when she's 17, now many things happen in between. I'm just summing up the story just so that you'll get an idea of what she went through. When she was 17, father and 3 sisters come to the orphanage. They find out that she's there, so they come to the orphanage to collect her. They bring sari for her, bring flowers, they bring sweets and everything. She's so happy. For the first time she sees her father and sisters. She's so happy to go with them. She packs her bags and she goes, waving goodbye to everyone in the orphanage because she was going back to family. Only to realize they bring her home to get her married to a 40-year-old man. 17 to a 40-year-old man. She gets so angry, she throws everything and she comes back to the orphanage. She later marries an Air Force man who's kind to her, good to her, looks after her. 3 children later, she realizes that this man is married to one of his relatives. He had never told her about it. Someone told her that. Hearing this, she felt life is too painful. So much has happened. There's been so much of injustice in my life. So she takes her 3 children and goes and stands on the railway line and says, we are going to die today. She holds them there, said, be bold, be brave, I'm with you. She's holding their hands. She can hear the train coming. And suddenly there's a voice calling out, come here, your husband has come back. Without realizing, she and the children step back and the train passes. She goes back to the house. Husband is not there. Nobody is there. Neither can she find the stranger who called out to her. Now she's upset because even death is not there for her. She's angry, so she takes the children, gets into a train, goes off to a far place, gets down in one of the small stations and is over there. The station master asks her, what are you doing here? She said, no relative has come to pick me up. I don't have the address. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. The station master realizes something is wrong. He lets her be in the waiting room. So the children play around. She works at the station, cleaning up and doing things. That's how she was bringing up the children on the platform. Till some nuns found them there, realized that they didn't have a home, and they took them to their place. And that's where she educated her children. She got a job herself, and she was doing well over there. And so she tells us, life has been like this for me. There's never been a moment where people have not cheated me or betrayed me. She says, you are saying forgive. Forgive. As Babu and I heard a story, this is just the gist of the volume of things that she had to say. She's saying, you are saying forgive. You know, we looked at each other, we looked at her. I could not open my mouth and say forgive, because I knew forgiveness is the key. But this lady has gone through so much. And she's telling me the most painful story of her life. And if I say forgive, even though it's the key, it's like slapping her on the face. I said, Auntie, Jesus understands your pain, what you've gone through. Jesus understands life has been unfair to you. I said, we're going to leave you today. Tomorrow we'll meet up with you again. And we send her to the room. And Babu and I prayed together. We said, Lord, you have to meet her and heal the pain in her heart. Because only when you heal the pain, she can forgive. And we just prayed for her. We went away. The next day morning when I came back, she was the first one to greet me at the gate. She says, Annie, I want to tell you something. I said, yes, Auntie, what is it? She says, 5:30 this morning, Jesus came into the room. Jesus came into the room. And he told me, I'm here to heal you of your pain. I've seen what has happened in your life. I want to heal you of your pain. I said, what did you do, Auntie? She says, I forgave everyone. I didn't have to tell her to do it. Jesus healed her of the pain. She was able to forgive. That auntie was the first one to come up and testify. She says, wherever you go, I want you to tell my story, because I am the one who came from the dustbin today to the heights of glory. That's the work of God. That's the work of God. Hatred, bitterness, anger can be there in our heart. But when Jesus heals you of your pain, You want to forgive. You want to forgive. You want to let go. And I trust that you will do that. We don't want to be victims any longer. We don't want to be in prisons. We want to be free so that we can be all that God wanted for us. All that God wanted. And I pray today, you will be able to say it with your mouth. I forgive, not in your mind. I forgive, say it. Mean it from your heart. And when you mean it, you will feel it. Are we ready for that? Okay, I'm not going to ask you to do it now. Right now, I just want you to make a list of all the people who've hurt you. We're just going to give out some paper for you to write. Can you just help John, please, somebody? Can you just help pass the papers? Give Charles some to Charles. Just pass the paper around. Charles, give that side. Just pass it around.